All right. Seven losers here. Who were the losers and why were they the losers? Well, actually, it was really hard to come up with a list of seven. And in fact, because of that, I decided to go with three honorable mentions and then just a list of six. And even a couple of the ones that made the list of six were tough because I really thought there's only a couple of these drafts that I actually really disliked. And usually there's a good amount. So I thought a lot of teams did smart stuff here. Usually, coming up with seven isn't that difficult. It was really hard here. So the three honorable mentions that I just can't justify putting on a list because they did so much right as well. I put the Denver Broncos on an honorable mention just because I'm not a crazy Bo Nix fan, but I've also always kind of maintained that if you like a quarterback, draft a quarterback. Worst case scenario, they end up not working out and you can just get another quarterback later. So, and I really liked the Troy Franklin selection. I thought was really strong. So, it would be tough to really justify putting them on the list. I was just trying to think of a seventh. Another one would be the Arizona Cardinals, who I didn't love a lot of what they did as well in terms of pick by pick. I thought they made some mistakes in some players that they got I wasn't crazy about, but they also had just a ton of selections. They had, I believe it was 11 picks, and they got Marvin Harrison Jr. How is that a loser? It's not. So even though I don't love every pick, and even the Vikings were another one where it's they traded up and I think gave up a little bit too much value is what a lot of people, people that are smarter than me that have done these formulas on how much picks are worth and everything have kind of really crushed the Vikings for. But I don't know. Things are not to be the full football bro take, but football games aren't won on paper. There is, maybe they gave up too much in a typical draft for pick 17, but I think they liked pick 17 of Dallas Turner more than you usually would. Sure, they traded up one pick, but they wanted to make sure they got their quarterback. So if J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner hit, this could be a franchise-altering draft and an amazing draft. So they did have some reaches later on in the draft as well, but I couldn't justify putting them on the losers. So they were teams I thought of, honorable mentions, but cannot quite, even though I didn't love everything they did enough good. I'm just not going to put them on the list. So now let's get to the six losers that did make the list, starting off with the Falcons, of course. And just to be clear, every team gets better in the draft. Being a loser does not mean that you got worse because that wouldn't be possible. Well, I guess it could be possible if you traded away a player during the draft, but, usually it's not possible to get worse in the draft. And, I'm also viewing this not as the way I view it is you had a certain amount of projected value entering the draft. I expected you to get X amount of value. Whoever got the less than X, how less was it? So for example, if you drafted a punter with the 200th pick, I'm not going to be that harsh on you. But if you drafted a punter with the 7th pick, I would crush you and you'd be on the list, right? So without further ado, the Atlanta Falcons definitely have to make the list. They just do. I've made a lot of jokes about them that definitely could end up aging poorly if in a few years. I'm totally setting myself up for it. Listen, I get the argument, right? I get why you draft Michael Penix. I don't think he's not worth pick number 8. He's a really good player. The concern I have with a selection like this is, well, then why did you pay Kirk Cousins? To me, if you want to, I think any justification of the Michael Penix pick goes right back to, well, then why did you pay Kirk Cousins? So maybe it's the decision to pay Kirk Cousins was the issue, not to draft Penix. That's probably what I would say, actually. I think their mistake was signing Kirk Cousins instead of drafting Penix. But still, Cousins is going to be on the books fully for the next 2 years. And if you cut him after 2 years, you'd still owe $25 million in dead cap. So Penix's rookie deal is essentially gone at that point. You only have 1 year of really cheap production at the quarterback position, where usually you get 4 years, and then the 5th year option, which is a discounted price, right? Not really cheap, but still cheaper than how quarterbacks make. I think Penix is really good. It's you have a quarterback, you draft another quarterback. I'm just never a fan of that philosophy. I don't know if Kirk Cousins is going to get angry and win MVPs like Aaron Rodgers did. I don't know if Penix is going to end up being Jordan Love, just because that worked twice with the Packers doesn't mean it's going to work every time you do it. I've yet to see any evidence to really support that it makes it more likely, other than just, it worked for the Packers, which isn't great evidence in my opinion. You have Rook Ahororo, also is the other reason that they ended up making this list, who I thought was a bit of a reach there, especially with Johnny Newton still on the board. Who knows? Maybe they like something with him, but I thought Newton could be a potential star play, like a Pro Bowl caliber player. So I'm surprised they went with a different interior defensive lineman. A couple picks I really liked as well here later on. I think that if you forget about the top 2 picks, it's not a bad draft, although there were some reaches later on in the draft as well. But again, those first 2 picks are the most important ones, so misfire here. But who knows? There is the potential this could be a great draft, of course. It's not like Penix and Ahororo are bad prospects. I just think they could have gotten better prospects, but a prospect is not a player, and the players that they got could end up being better than the other, maybe better prospects that they decided to pass up, if that makes any sense. The 49ers make my list, even though they had a couple of picks that I did like here. Again, like I said, there isn't, basically every team that's on this list has some picks where I'm like, oh, that was really smart. Well done, right? That's just going to happen. But a lot of reaches here. Like if you want Ricky, some people really like Ricky Purcell. I believe that, I think it was CJ Stroud who called him like elite and said that he wanted him. So, okay, maybe listen, CJ Stroud spends a lot more time on football than I do, even though it's my job, because obviously he's, quarterback and all that. But still, I like Purcell. I think he's a quality receiver, but it was a bit high for me. He was projected to go mid-second round, drafting him first round. I think mid-second round would have felt better for me. I think there were better players and better receivers on the board. He kind of fits what they're doing a little bit more, so it's a bit of a unique case. But I don't know. Wasn't my favorite pick, but wasn't one I hated either. Just kind of like maybe a slightly negative pick in my opinion. And then the Renardo Green selection, another reach, projected to go in the hundreds. They drafted him at 64, so that's kind of what a lot of these picks were. And then the obvious one of at pick 135 they go Jacob Cowing, who was projected to be undrafted by far. He wasn't even really on the radar to be drafted, so getting him with 140 picks left in the draft, that's not right. 120 picks left in the draft. That was a bit of a head scratcher. So didn't love every selection here. They got some good players, some players that are going to contribute. Just wasn't my favorite draft. Next up, I'm putting the Commanders on here, and this is going to be, Commanders fans are going to be upset, but it's simply just, how do you evaluate Jayden Daniels? Do you view Jayden Daniels as the number 2 quarterback, or do you view him as the number 3 quarterback? And for me, I have Drake May as the number 2 quarterback in this draft class, and I do think there's a bit of a teardrop, after, I think Drake May is in another tier than Daniels is, in my opinion. And I could be wrong about that. Quarterback evaluation is notoriously incredibly difficult, so I'm not sitting here saying, well, I'm obviously right. The Commanders are obviously wrong and stupid, but I'm giving my opinions on what I consider to be winners or losers, so that's what I have to make this list. So some really interesting picks, and some picks I loved later on. Johnny Newton, Mike Sandstrom, that was a great back-to-back selection stuff. Didn't love every pick they made. Interested in seeing how Luke McCaffrey could play. He's Christian McCaffrey's brother. That's interesting. But as a whole, it just, quarterbacks matter more than anything, so didn't love that selection. It's totally possible I'll eat my words in a couple of years with this. Wouldn't be the first time, but again, given my opinions, that is my opinion. The Tennessee Titans make my list. I believe I'm not sure if they made every single worst losers list, because I made a losers list after night 1 and then after night 2, only talking about those. Now I'm doing it for the whole draft, of course, and it's largely due to the night 1 and night 2. I think that, what they did day 3 was fine. No real issues there. But JC Latham pick was one that I wasn't crazy about. I thought that, listen, I get it. You wanted to get, an offensive lineman to help you out. I like Latham as a player. I do. 7 was just high for me. It just was. I think that you could have gotten better players at that point. And it's the thing where I don't love drafting for need, because you're getting a worse player. And we all understand this, right? If, 2 teams did a swap of players because it fits need more, well, if one player is better than the other player, usually the player that's better, that team is going to say, well, you have to give us a draft pick back to make it even. Like, we get that, but for some reason in the draft, people are totally fine with just taking the worst player because it fits a need. And maybe they view Latham as a top 7 prospect. I could be wrong about that, but I thought there were better prospects. I still think he'll be a good tackle for them, though. So I'm not like, it's again, you got better. It's just maybe you could have gotten even more better, I think. The Devondre Sweat pick is also a real gamble. I'm not saying it couldn't work out, but there's some issues, not just off the field, but on film I had with him. He was projected to go 73rd. They got him at 38, so taking a big swing. He could be a Vita Vea type player, and even more unique than that, because he's 370 pounds. He just stands out on the football field, even among the biggest people on the planet. So that's interesting, but how well will it translate? It's a big swing, so it's possible that they didn't get the most value out of 2 very premium picks, which is why they're on the list, but it is possible they also got some good players. Remains to be seen. Next up is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I want to start off by saying I love their first pick. A lot of these teams that are on the list are like, I wasn't crazy about your first pick, and then the rest was fine, but because of that, I'm still putting you on the list. The Jaguars were not that. I loved their first pick. Trading back, getting more draft capital, getting Brian Thomas Jr., 10 out of 10, no notes, well done. I then thought they basically just kept drafting the best athlete they could find and not caring about the fact that they were, reaching by 50 or 100 picks on basically every single one. If you look at the consensus big board, which does not mean anything other than just, it means something, right? Guys who, if you draft someone at pick 100 who's projected to go 200, 9 out of 10 times they play like a guy who is projected to go 200, but still, it's not the end all be all, and there are times where it makes sense to go against the consensus big board. Long story short, the Jaguars only had 2 picks where they were, they drafted a guy either when they were supposed to be drafted or before they were supposed, or after they were supposed to be drafted. Every other pick was a reach according to the consensus big board, and some massive, like Mason Smith at pick 49, projected to go 92. You had, Jerron Jones was 50 spots ahead. Foster was nearly 30 spots ahead. That one wasn't a massive one. Jordan Jefferson was 80 spots. DeAndre Prince was nearly 110 spots ahead. Kellen Robinson was nearly 200 spots ahead. So some real reaches. Again, they're drafting the athletes who they hope can be, they're drafting for athleticism. They want to get guys who have the highest ceiling. Maybe we can coach up some other stuff. It's what Trent Baalke likes to do. It's what the Jaguars like to do. We'll see if it works out. Finally, the Green Bay Packers, who were, again, it's weird to put them on this list because they had so many picks, and plenty of picks that I really liked on this list. I really liked the Edger and Cooper pick a lot. I think that people are maybe even a bit low on him as a mid-second rounder. I think he could have been a fringe first rounder. And Javon Bullard was another really good selection at a position of need. And they had so many picks that some of these guys are certainly going to hit. I just thought they had some reaches here. Didn't love the Jordan Morgan pick. He was projected as an early second rounder, and I thought that was a bit high personally for me. And he went in the first round to the Packers, which was I wasn't crazy about. Packers have a history of coaching up offensive linemen, sure, but I'd rather them get a better player. That's just how I view it. Maybe I'm wrong. Wasn't crazy about Marshawn Lloyd, but there's some intrigue with him, I suppose. But I don't know. They had enough picks. You can justify spending one on a running back. It's fine, but maybe not what I would have done. And then a couple of just reaches. Again, let's go back to the consensus big board, right? They had 3 straight picks where they're drafting someone 80 spots ahead of when they were projected to be drafted in Teron Hopper, Evan Williams, and Jacob Monk. 2 of those were over 100 spots. So, that's not ideal, not getting the most value usually. The Michael Pratt selection is interesting for a backup quarterback. They at least didn't light a pick on fire like they did last year with their backup quarterback selection. But, as a whole, they got some value here. Just felt they could have gotten more, which is the case with every team that made my losers list. So, yeah, that is what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Again, the losers I put on the list, a lot of them weren't like, you could have won a Super Bowl if you didn't do this. It's just more of I think maybe you got if value was on a chart and you would have gotten 200 value points entering the draft, you only got 180. So I'm going to put you on the losers list because of it. Most teams kind of got the value they were supposed to get or more than that. So, I thought this was a really well done draft by most teams. These were the ones that did the least well done job, in my opinion. But, still, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.